I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're exploring a wonderful book. It's called Molokai, The Little Island Gem of Hawaii, a historical guide. It's written by Gordon Brownlow, and it isn't just any travel guide, it's your gateway to exploring one of Hawaii's most untouched and mystically enriched islands. We will uncover the best kept secrets of Molokai's pristine beaches and legendary historical sites. We're delighted to have this talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. We ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his insightful book. The links are below this interview. Gordon, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for letting me do what we call talk story in Hawaii. I love to talk story anyway. I do that on the beach every day. And so this is just a wonderful opportunity. I don't know if you know, but I worked in the television industry for 30 years myself. So
Wonderful.
I know a little bit about how important the story is.
Well, we're glad to have you on our show, that's for sure. How did you first discover Molokai?
Well, the first time I came here, a friend of mine who lives in Maui, in Kihei, she always wanted to ride the mules down to Kalapapa. I don't know if anybody in your listeners know about that, but that's where the leprosy colony was.
Right.
And there's a national park there, historic park. And at that time, you could ride mules down to it. Doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, that part of it. But we came over and we spent a week there and rode the mules down. And my wife and I just really loved the island, how slow and quiet it was, and compared to the other Hawaiian islands that tourists tend to go to.
It is a much, much quieter island. In fact, accommodations are tough to come by, right? There's only one or a few hotels or something like that.
There literally is only one hotel, Hotel Molokai. And so, but we do have 5 resorts on the island. Most of them are apartment condominium style resorts. So there's accessibility to, which is getting maybe a little bit harder to find now, but Airbnbs and VRBOs and those kind of things are very much available.
Can you tell us a little bit about the mystical history of Molokai? I know there was the leper colony there, of course, but there's a mystical side of it all as well, right?
Yes, even in the early days before the Polynesians got here, they believed the island was occupied by the Menehunis, which were a mystical group of people who came from some group of islands south of here. And they were smaller people, and the Menehunis are always just considered to be a mystical type of people, but they did exist. And so Molokai had a lot of those. They think the fish ponds that were built for getting fish that the islanders used to use to on their shores, they believe they were built by the Menehunis. So yes, they were here even before the Polynesians.
Very cool.
And they had a very mystical type of life, and they didn't want the Polynesians to come, partly because they were much bigger than they were and much stronger. So they used mystical ways of keeping them from coming here.
Amazing, amazing. What are some of the hidden gems on Molokai that travelers might overlook?
Well, I think my favorite hidden gem that travelers usually can find online is the Halava Bay area, which is on the very east end of the island, where the road actually ends. The roads only go east and west here. We do have 2 small ones that go north and south, but the road does not go completely around the island, partly because there's high sea cliffs and very difficult terrain for those roads to be built. In fact, the highest sea cliffs in the world are here on Molokai.
Amazing, amazing. As someone who has explored, Molokai extensively, what are your personal recommendations for best activities and best sites?
Well, again, the Halava has a wonderful cultural tour you can do. It is private land, so you do need to book this cultural tour to go up to the waterfalls and actually swim in the pond that the waterfall makes. And while you're doing it, to the people who do the waterfall hike, they start out with a very cultural tour that gives you the lowdown of, you know, how King Kamehameha used the island and those early days of Molokai.
You mentioned before that Molokai only has one hotel. That makes finding a hotel obviously tough at times, but it also makes the island very, very special because it's not overrun with tourists like the other islands, right?
Yes, tourists are always blown away by the fact that we have the third longest beach in Hawaii, and quite often you see less than 5 people on that entire beach. It's almost 3 miles long, and you get out there and you go, "Where is everybody?" So yes, and then yesterday I hiked out to my favorite beach called Kawakio, and the only people I saw was one Hawaiian and some people who had anchored their boat, their catamaran, off the shore, and that was it. That was the only people. But you do see a lot of monk seals and Hawaiian green turtles over there.
What brought you to the Hawaiian Islands originally? Retirement, lifestyle, the weather? A lot of people go to Florida, a lot of people go to Arizona, but you chose perhaps one of the most beautiful places on earth, Hawaii.
Yeah, that's interesting. We have a bunch of friends we had in Breckenridge, Colorado, and they got to be our older age, and they all had to move to someplace warmer and lower elevation, and they all ended up going to Florida. But my son, he was in the Navy here for over 12 years, and my granddaughter. So we knew this is where we wanted to be, was close to them, and so that's one of the main reasons we came here. Now, the first time I came, believe it or not, I was on R&R from Vietnam. I was fighting the war in Vietnam, and I just wanted to take a week away from the war, and I chose Honolulu or Waikiki, and stayed in one of the early hotels there in the 1971. So yes, that's the first time I explored Hawaii.
Amazing. You've got quite a history then with Hawaii, having stayed there during your service to our country during the Vietnam War, and then, of course, traveling there to be close to your son and your grandchild. That sounds wonderful. Tell me what it was like writing this book for you.
It was a labor of love. It really was. I loved history anyway. In Colorado, I worked for I was a docent for the museums there in Breckenridge, and I also was a mining tour guide. So I just loved history anyway. So when I got here, first thing I did was start reading about the history. I read Michener's book Hawaii, and it made me wonder how Molokai fit into all this picture. No one that I could see has ever really pulled in their history and showed how Molokai was able to use the rest of the islands, but have their own faction where they have their own history. And so that's where I got really interested. And so the ladies over there at the library, they saw me a lot, and they were giving me lists of books that I could possibly use to write my book. And to start with, I wasn't even thinking about writing a book. I just was telling my wife a lot of stories, and she said, "You know what? You have so many stories. Why don't you put them down on paper?" And the next thing I knew, I had a book.
Wonderful, wonderful. Relate to us one of the stories that's in your book that the folks at home would find interesting.
Well, actually, one of the more interesting ones that happened to me, I was out on a beach that had a picnic table, and at that time, people were allowed to drive their four-wheel drives out there. And it was on a Friday, and so the Maui Electric crew had gotten the day off. They only had to work a half day. They had come on the island to improve our electric integration here. And so one of those people actually happened to be from the Big Island, and he asked me. He saw that I was reading a book on paniolus. Paniolus are cowboys, and he said, "Can I look at that book?" And I said, "Of course you can." He said, My grandpa, he had one that was all torn up, just like this, because the book was written in the 70s. And I said, and then he said, "Can I show you a picture of that book?" And he said, "Yes, my uncle, he's in this fifth book. He worked for the Parker Ranch back in the day." And so he was a early day cowboy on the Parker Ranch. Anyway, I asked him what something they said in the book was about the fact that when Paniolo or a cowboy would take the cattle out to a ship, he would lead them out with a rope, but in the other hand, he had to have a paddle. And I said, and the story was that he would have to use that to hit the sharks in the nose if they tried to attack their cattle. And he said, "Yes, my uncle, he did that." So not only did I read it in the book, but I verified it, and because it was quite the story.
Wonderful. That is a great story indeed. We're so happy you wrote this book. If folks at home, if you're planning a trip to Hawaii, if you think you might want to go to Hawaii, here is an off the charts gem, if you will. It's called Molokai, the Little Island Gem of Hawaii, a historical guide. It's written by Gordon Brownlow. It's a terrific look at an island that you might overlook in Hawaii, but should not overlook because it's beautiful, untouched, and mystical in many ways. Gordon, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Oh, mahalo and aloha. Mahalo, of course, is thank you. And aloha is the greeting that we Hawaiians love to use. And to know what aloha really means, it means love. And the ha part of it is breath, because Hawaiians always feel like the breath is the most important thing to a human. And instead of just greeting someone with a shake, they do it with a breath in each other's ear. And you'll see that in the stores here.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Typical Hawaiian greeting.
Mahalo and aloha to you as well. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight. Aloha.
Aloha.
There you go.